5 people you must avoid in old age, not even your family. Deep lessons from Buddhism. When you just want peace, but life won't let you be. Have you ever felt this way? It's a beautiful morning. You've just poured yourself a hot cup of tea, planning to sit down and relax for a moment, when the phone rings. It's a relative or a friend, and it's the same old story. Asking for favors, complaining or blaming. You sigh. Not because you don't want to help, but because it feels like you're seen as an endless source of support for others. Meanwhile, you're slowly getting exhausted, and nobody seems to notice. Old age should be a time for living gently, quietly, and peacefully. After so many years of hard work and struggle. But somehow, the older you get, the harder it feels to maintain your own peace. And the source of this exhaustion often comes from the very people closest to you. You know, the Buddha taught, "You are your own firmest refuge." How true that is when you think about it. Peace doesn't come from how others treat you, but from knowing who to walk alongside, and having the courage to distance yourself from those who disrupt your inner calm. No one is saying that being kind is wrong, but kindness doesn't mean you have to endure everything, especially when you've journeyed through most of your life. Protecting your inner peace should be the top priority. Today, I want to reflect with you, gently yet profoundly, on 5 types of people you should learn to distance yourself from in your later years. Whether they are close friends or even blood relatives, they are not worth sacrificing the remaining peace in your life for. This isn't said to make you become heartless or selfish, but rather, it's hoped that you understand. You deserve to live a life that is peaceful, serene, and fulfilling within your own soul. 5 types of people to avoid as you get older. 1. The manipulator, someone who often takes advantage of your kindness. Do you know this type of person? They often call unexpectedly, texting just when you're about to lie down for a rest or have just sat down for a peaceful meal. Initially, it might be borrowing a little money urgently, asking you to look after their grandchildren for a few days, requesting a ride to the hospital, and then confiding about their marital problems, debts, or misbehaving children. Each individual request might seem trivial, but when they accumulate, you realize you've spent most of your time living for them, not for yourself anymore. What makes you feel torn is that they often use appeals to kinship or emotionally charged language to make you relent. They say things like, "If I can't ask you, Auntie, who else can I turn to? I don't want to bother you, Mom, but you know our situation. Please help us just this once. We'll be indebted to you forever." Your kindness, it's truly precious. But in the hands of a manipulator, it becomes a tool for them to live comfortably, while you end up exhausted. In Buddhism, there is a profound insight. Compassion does not equate to foolishness. Someone who truly knows how to love is someone who knows how to set boundaries. You can be open-hearted and helpful, but you don't always have to push yourself to endure hardship. You can show care, but not by allowing yourself to be depleted daily. Thich Nhat Hanh once taught, "If you don't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of anyone else properly." Consider this. Every time you reluctantly help someone, no matter how close they are, and a sigh rises within you, that action no longer stems from compassion, but from feeling obligated to care. And this kind of caring, in the long run, only exhausts you, fosters their dependency, and prevents both of you from growing. So, what should you do? Start small. The next time someone asks you for something that feels beyond your capacity, pause for a few seconds and ask yourself, will this bring me peace or cause me stress? If it feels stressful, you have the right to refuse, gently but firmly. For example, I understand your situation, dear, but right now I need to focus on taking care of my own health. Mom loves you dearly, but I can't help with this particular matter. You'll have to handle it yourself. You are not being selfish. You are simply practicing compassion correctly by not enabling dependency and not turning yourself into an endless, unconditional source of support for others. Imagine this. One afternoon, you're sitting on your familiar wooden chair on the porch, a cup of hot tea in your hands. A cool breeze gently ruffles your hair. Birds chirp merrily near the areca palms. The phone rings. You glance at the screen. It's that person. But this time, you choose not to pick up right away. You choose to let your tea stay warm. You choose to fully embrace this moment of peace for yourself. Just that small act is the first step in returning to yourself. And then one day, when you no longer live amidst demanding calls or relentless requests for favors, you'll suddenly realize peace isn't found somewhere far away. It lies within those moments you dared to say no to what was draining you. 2. The self-centered person. Someone who only thinks of themselves, disregarding your feelings. Have you ever sat beside a loved one and still felt lonely? They might be family members, close friends, or longtime acquaintances. Whenever you meet, you want to share a fond memory, a small sadness, or simply unburden yourself with a few thoughts. But as soon as you begin to speak, they quickly interrupt, diverting the conversation to themselves. Let's put that aside for now. Listen to what I have to say. Yeah, but I'm the one who's truly suffering. The first time, you might brush it off with a smile. The second time, you feel a slight pang. By the third time, you begin to fall silent, because you realize you are not being listened to. You are merely a sounding board for them to continue talking about themselves. Self-centered people aren't always loud or boastful. They might be very polite, even kind, yet they consistently steer the conversation back to themselves. They don't inquire about your life or your feelings. They listen merely to respond, not to comprehend. According to Buddhist teachings, mindful listening is an act of true compassion. When you listen to someone wholeheartedly, you don't just hear with your ears, you perceive with compassion. However, the self-centered person lacks the space for this. In their mind, the seat is perpetually reserved for themselves, and no one else. In our later years, we crave conversations rich with empathy, not one-sided monologues. You don't need someone who always agrees with you, but you deserve someone who knows when to be silent and listens as if what you say genuinely matters. If you frequently interact with self-centered individuals, you'll find your energy rapidly depleted. After each conversation, instead of feeling unburdened, you feel drained and let down. Because although you are together, they are not truly present for you. Therefore, consider adjusting the distance. You don't need to cut ties completely, but you can be selective about interaction times or limit the conversation's depth. Let them talk about themselves if they wish. But you don't have to remain there indefinitely just to listen. You can also gently guide the conversation back towards balance. For example, "That's interesting too, but I was in the middle of talking about this. Could I finish, please?" Or even, "Today, I'd really just appreciate being listened to for a moment, without debate or advice." This isn't meant as blame, but as a way to protect your own emotional space. Picture this. On a tranquil afternoon, you're sitting on a porch with a few old friends. Each shares a small story, some joyful, some sorrowful. Everyone listens intently, sometimes falling into compassionate silence, sometimes erupting in affectionate laughter. No one competes to speak, no one dominates. Together, they weave a conversation that is warm and whole. This is the kind of connection to cherish in our later years, one where every story is valued, and each individual feels truly seen and heard for who they are. The self-centered person may not realize their lack of empathy, and it's not your job to change them. What you need to do is honor your own worth. Your stories deserve to be heard, and your feelings need validation. For as Buddhist wisdom suggests, if the mind is not centered within, true understanding cannot be found. Note, this is an interpretation fitting the context, as direct Buddhist quotes can vary in translation and specific phrasing. So, if you find yourself not being heard, choose to listen to yourself first. Then, gradually, you will find others who are also willing to truly listen to you as well. 3. The critic, the one who makes you feel like you're never good enough. Some words aren't loud, yet they echo endlessly in your mind. Some looks aren't angry, yet they're enough to make your heart clench. And there are people, no matter how close, who excel only at seeing what you haven't achieved, leaving you constantly doubting yourself. The critic doesn't need to yell or scold. All they need are phrases like, "How come you're this old and still don't understand this?" If only you'd focused on making a living back then, you wouldn't be struggling like this now. With a personality like that, who could possibly love you? These words might masquerade as feedback, concern, or wanting what's best for you. But deep down, you know it's not love. It's a sharp blade veiled in silk. In Buddhism, there's a profound teaching. Words are like arrows. Once released, they cannot be retrieved. And the arrows from the critic are often exceedingly sharp. They don't just wound you in the moment. They take root within you, causing you to silently reproach yourself, to doubt your own worth. Perhaps you're tending your small garden, a gentle smile gracing your lips as you see the early blooms, when a comment from someone, playing gardener when you haven't even sorted out your bread and butter, is enough to extinguish the newly sparked joy. In old age, we don't need perfection, nor do we need accolades. We simply need to be ourselves, with all our wrinkles, old sorrows, and even the aspects of our lives that remain unfinished. But the critic won't let you rest with that. They always want you to change, to be better, according to their definition. The only problem is that standard remains perpetually out of reach, and you are deemed perpetually insufficient. So, what can we do? Firstly, recognize this. Not all words are worth listening to. The Buddha taught, if words do not carry compassion, then even if they are true, they are incomplete. They might hold a grain of truth, but if those words inflict pain, make you feel inadequate, cause you to withdraw, then they are not words rooted in mindfulness. Try responding with a smile, a gentle nod, and then let it pass. Or, if you wish to set clearer boundaries, you might say, I know you're concerned, but I'm old enough to know what's best for myself. Thank you for the input, but I choose to live in a way that brings me peace. Saying this isn't being stubborn. It's about protecting your inner light from words that seek to dim it. You can also choose to create gentle distance with this person. It's not about cutting ties, but about minimizing contact. They may continue their criticism, but it will no longer reach the vulnerable places in your heart. And most importantly, do not internalize their words as your own inner voice. Cultivate the voice of self-compassion daily, instead of the refrain, "Why am I not good enough?" Swingingly tell yourself, "I am doing my best. I am worthy of love. I am enough, exactly as I am, imperfections and all." Imagine this. An early morning, you're sitting on your porch, a cup of hot ginger tea fragrant in your hands, sunlight filtering through the canopy of old leaves. You reflect on your life, acknowledging both what you've achieved and what remains incomplete. And you smile. No praise, no criticism, just you, gently accepting yourself. That is freedom, and it is the most precious gift you can give yourself at this stage of life. 4. The irresponsible person, the one who makes you bear the consequences for them, time and time again. Have you ever known someone whose mere presence makes your heart feel heavy? Not because they're loud, not because they're malicious, but because every time there's trouble, you're the one they call. Every time they mess up, you're the one who has to fix it. And every single time, you end up shouldering the consequences for things you didn't cause. Initially, you help them out of compassion. Then, you continue helping because, well, you're already involved. Eventually, it reaches a point where you're unsure if you're helping them live or being dragged down by them. In Buddhism, there's a concept called karma, or cause and effect. Nhan qua nyip bao, you reap what you sow. But some irresponsible people sow the seeds, then push the consequences onto others to bear. You become a soft cushion, enabling them to repeat their mistakes, time and time again. They borrow recklessly. You step in to pay it back. They live indulgently, and when they get sick, you're the one taking care of them. They neglect their children, their family. You rush over to save the day, and the most dangerous part, they aren't grateful, because in their eyes you have to do it. Because you're blood relatives, because you're family, because if you care, you shouldn't complain. Sound familiar? My dear friend, pause for a moment and ask yourself, am I living someone else's life? How much of what I do is out of true compassion, and how much is driven by guilt or obligation? There's something I want to tell you sincerely. Loving someone doesn't mean you have to carry their karma or consequences for them. Sometimes, love means knowing when to stand still. It means giving them the space to face the consequences they need to learn from. It means trusting that they too have their own path to learning their lessons. There's a saying in the scriptures, "The fool carries another's burden without realizing its weight." Old age is not the time to continue shouldering the burdens for irresponsible people. You've lived a hard enough life. Now is the time to lighten your shoulders, let go, and live for yourself. If someone keeps messing up and then turns to you to clean up the mess, you absolutely have the right to say, "I can't help this time." This was your decision, so you need to take responsibility for it. I care about you, but I also need peace for myself. It might sound cold, but actually, it's wise compassion. It's loving without enabling. It's knowing how to offer your kindness appropriately, in the right place at the right time. Imagine a peaceful morning. You're not woken up by a desperate call for help, not pulled into messes that aren't yours. You sip hot tea, breathe gently, watch the sunlight stream through the window, and you say to yourself, "I don't need to save the world anymore. I choose to live lightly, so the rest of my life is no longer a burden, but a gift." 5. The negative person. the one who makes you see only suffering and disappointment wherever you look. Have you ever sat next to someone where, no matter how beautiful the sunshine or how brightly the flowers bloom, the first thing they say is still, "Well, but it will all fade eventually"? People like this could be neighbors, relatives, or even longtime friends. They aren't malicious, they don't pick fights, but being around them leaves you feeling tired. Because everything in their eyes is tinged with gloom. Whatever others achieve, they dismiss it as showing off or just luck. The future? It's all about disappointment. It won't lead anywhere anyway. Are you happy? They bring up sad memories to pull you back down to earth. Being around them for a long time, you gradually lose your inspiration for life. You feel like you're wrong for daring to hope, for daring to believe that there are still beautiful things in this life. A negative person is like a deep well. The closer you get, the more you get pulled down. And the saddest part is, sometimes they even have justifications to reinforce their pessimism. They recount stories of failure, remind you of losses. They view life through a dusty lens, and then tell you that's just reality. Don't hope for fanciful things, but you know what? Reality is not pessimism. Reality encompasses both suffering and hope. It means that within hardship, joy can still sprout, if we are mindful enough to recognize it. The Buddha once taught, "Where your mind is, there your world is." If your mind constantly leans towards negativity, the world you perceive will never be bright. And if you frequently spend time near those living in darkness, the light within you will also gradually fade. In old age, that light becomes even more precious, because having nearly completed the journey, you don't need any more dark pictures. You need light, simple joy, people who remind you you are still alive, and living can be very beautiful. So, what should you do about negative people? I'm not telling you to cut ties completely. Just don't let your own mind be dragged down with them. You can absolutely maintain a gentle distance as a way to protect your own peace of mind. When they start complaining, you can change the subject. When they dismiss your joy, simply smile and hold on to that joy for yourself. When they say, "This world is full of suffering," you can gently reply, "Yes, but there are also blooming flowers, laughing children, and beautiful sunsets, aren't there?" And when you feel yourself starting to be affected, quietly return to your breath, to the present moment, where you have the power to choose what you focus on. My dear friend, old age is a golden time to return to lightness. If someone consistently makes you feel gloomy and heavy-hearted, whether they are a relative or an old friend, it's worth reevaluating that relationship. Choose to be around people who have light in their hearts. People whom, just by sitting next to them, you feel your spirit lift. People whose every word is like a ray of sunshine, whose every glance is subtle, gentle encouragement. And then, one day, you will find yourself sitting in a garden, sunlight filtering through the leaves. No more sighs in your ear, no more tiresome complaints. Just you, peaceful, fulfilled, and grateful for having carefully chosen the relationships in your life. When we let go, we truly begin to live. The 5 types of people to avoid in old age: the manipulator, the arrogant, the critic, the irresponsible, and the negative person, may not necessarily be bad people. They might have been part of our memories, part of our love, or they might still be our blood relatives. But kinship doesn't mean you have to endure. Old age isn't meant for struggling against others, but for returning to oneself, light-hearted, fulfilled, and free. You don't need to confront anyone, nor do you need to cut ties dramatically. You simply need to start choosing again. Who deserves to be part of the rest of your life? Those who don't appreciate you, let them go. Those who always make you feel small, refuse them the chance to continue. A gentle reminder: re-choose your companions, re-choose your peace. Remember, you are not selfish for protecting your energy. You are not cruel for choosing to distance yourself from toxic relationships. And above all, you have the right to live your later years with tranquility and happiness. The Buddha once taught, "A good friend is more precious than treasure." So, be a good friend to yourself first. Starting today, quietly let go of relationships that disturb your peace of mind. Spend time with those who make you laugh. Choose to be around those who listen and respect you. And if there's no one suitable left, just be alone. But be alone in peace. You cannot control who comes or goes, but you can choose how you treat yourself. Live like a flower, blooming not for anyone, not to please anyone, simply because you deserve to shine in your own space. If you feel this article resonates with you somewhere in your heart, please share it with a loved one. Perhaps it's the small but meaningful gift they need most today. Wishing you, whatever your age, may you always live lightly, peacefully, and true to yourself.